end of this incredibly long and draining document from Lively. Now we're going to look at her final opposition, which is to defendant's motion limine number 19. This is how tired I am. To bifurcate the issue of punitive damages. And obviously, I'm sure most people will know, but for those who don't, it's just to split it into two separate parts. Okay. Finally, defendants' request to bifurcate punitive damages should be denied. To begin, bifurcation is the exception, not the rule. That's because a single trial tends to lessen the delay, expense, and inconvenience to all concerned. And as the party seeking bifurcation, defendants bear the burden of demonstrating that such relief is warranted. Defendants do not come close to meeting their burden and do not meaningfully address any of the factors articulated under Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 42B, none of which support bifurcation. First, bifurcation would inconvenience the parties and the court and weighs against the relief defendants seek. Among other things, this trial is already anticipated to be approximately 3 weeks. As such, a decision to bifurcate the trial would only prolong the resolution of this already lengthy litigation. What is more, bifurcation would necessarily cause additional costs and inefficiencies, since it would effectively require multiple rounds of trial testimony and evidence. Second, defendants failed to demonstrate any colorable prejudice. Rather, the sole argument advanced on this score rests on the fact that evidence and testimony of their wealth would be prejudicial. However, as discussed above, any marginal prejudice, and there is none, is substantially outweighed by the probative value of defendants' net worth, which is directly relevant to Lively's retaliation claim. Specifically, defendants' access to Saueritz's wealth is what gave them the resources to hire a professional team to destroy Lively's reputation in a widespread, far-reaching smear campaign. God, I can't. I'm struggling to even finish this sentence. Again, the words she's complaining about specifically and claiming caused all this damaged reputation: mean girl, bully, tone deaf. Please bear that in mind. But I'm going to start that sentence again because it's impossible to get through the sensationalizing of this. Specifically, defendants' access to Saueritz's wealth is what gave them the resources to hire a professional team to destroy Lively's reputation in a widespread, far-reaching smear campaign and ultimately pursue a retaliatory lawsuit. Defendants' willingness to use that wealth is also probative of their motive, their state of mind, and the lengths they were willing to go to discredit and silence Lively and others. What others? That aside, any perceived prejudice can also be readily cured by a jury instruction. Finally, defendants' conclusory assertion of jury confusion is of no moment. The three causes of action to be tried are not complex, and defendants present no argument legally or factually as to how there is an increased probability of confusion with presenting liability and damages together in this case. Yeah, because Wayfarer want to do punitive damages separately. And Lively's like, no, just do it all together. And the reason Lively wants to do it all together is so that she can get out Steve Saueritz's net worth, his wealth, in the hope that, the jury is, as is the current climate at the moment, of the mind to want to punish a billionaire for simply being a billionaire. For each of these reasons, defendant's motion should be denied. So, there we go. Conclusion: for the foregoing reasons, plaintiff respectfully requests that the court deny defendant's motion in limine, and that comes to you from Ezra Hudson. Okay, there was nothing I wasn't expecting in that at all. Again, I'm not sure how Lyman will go on that score. Especially because I'm not anticipating, because I know the question comes up, well, where are we at now with the section 47.1 damages, the treble damages, etc. And where we are now is they are still in play, but Lyman has not ruled on the motion, and I do not think he will until this case is settled, because if she loses and she requires she requires every member of the jury to agree. This has got to be a unanimous decision for her to win. And if she doesn't get it, she loses. And, her case is not great anyway. Even if she only required a majority, her case is not great. It just does not look great at all when you put it all together. And I think Judge Lyman is kind of putting all his chips on the possibility that he is likely to not even have to rule on the 47.1 motion, because the chances of her winning this are fairly slim. So I think he's not going to rule on the 47.1 motion. He's going to wait for the outcome of the trial, because if he doesn't need to, then he's not. Why would you? Because it would also be a case of first impression. So there'd be no point making a decision, really. He would surprise me if he did do it. I'm not saying he couldn't, but he would surprise me if he did rule on the 47.1 damages motion before the trial, before there was a decision. But I can understand the complexity, and the argument from Wayfarer is, well, hold on, there is also, if she does win and she is awarded punitive damages, 47.1 also comes into play. And I think they're going to argue, well, that's a whole separate argument in and of itself, like whether she should be entitled to those damages. And I think that's why they want to bifurcate the punitive damages away from the main trial, which is assessing the merits of Lively's entire case, basically. I understand that. Lively's only real reason for wanting to put everything together is just to have an excuse to have Steve Sarritz's wealth read to the jury before they then go away and decide the merits of her claims overall. And unfortunately, we're in a current political climate where people are really not liking billionaires at the moment, millionaires or billionaires. So, I mean, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively are not going to do too well themselves for the same reasons. But, there is an overarching kind of presumption that people who have that kind of money are privileged and, need to be made an example of, which I don't agree with, because if someone has made that kind of money, they've made that kind of money. I don't think there's anything untoward about Steve Sarowitz just because he's a billionaire. And it also doesn't prove Lively's claims. So I don't like going in with that inherent kind of biased approach. But unfortunately, people can and do. And sometimes they sit on a jury, which involves, millionaires and billionaires. And sometimes details like that can cloud judgments. It's the same with her when she was throwing around the Israel Hamas statement. At the moment in the current political climate, conflict between Israel and Hamas, and regardless of what side you sit on with that, or whether you don't take a side at all, it is clearly designed to be an inflammatory statement. And Lively clipped it to be so. And when you hear it in full, it really is not like, the big threat that Lively has painted it to be. All right, guys, thanks for listening.